metallic gates opened with a heavy creak, and the sound of thousands of alien voices filled the air like thunder. Ryan Holt, a human soldier once known for his courage, now stood in the middle of a vast arena made of steel and sand. Above him were huge holographic screens showing his face. Below him, the alien crowd screamed with excitement. They were not here to cheer for him. They were here to see him suffer. Around the circle stood dozens of alien guards, their armor glowing blue, their weapons charged. The air smelled of blood and fire. The audience waited for the next cruel show. From the shadows, a small cage was brought forward. Inside was a fragile figure, thin, trembling, her skin pale with strange violet patterns glowing faintly. Her wrists were chained, her hair tangled, and her eyes full of fear. She was an alien girl, no older than 20, and clearly broken from torture. The announcer, a tall reptilian creature, raised his voice and shouted, "Entertainment for the night! Human versus alien. No weapons, no mercy." The crowd roared in laughter. They threw food scraps and metal coins into the pit. The girl lifted her head slowly and looked at Ryan, confusion in her glowing eyes. She expected pain, not pity. Ryan felt his heart twist. He had seen war. He had killed to survive. But this was not war. This was cruelty. He glanced around, realizing that this entire world treated suffering as sport. He clenched his fists, breathing heavily. The alien commander, sitting high above, smiled, his sharp teeth reflecting the arena lights. "Show us the strength of your kind, human," he shouted mockingly. Ryan's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, his boots pressing into the dust. The girl flinched, expecting him to strike. The crowd went silent for a moment, hungry for blood, but Ryan did not raise his hand. Instead, he knelt down in front of her. His voice was quiet but steady. "I'm not here to hurt you," he whispered. The crowd murmured in confusion. The alien commander stood from his seat, anger flashing in his glowing eyes. "Do it," he demanded. Ryan shook his head slowly. "No," he said, the single word echoing in the arena like thunder. The guards raised their weapons, electricity crackling through the air. The girl's chains rattled as she tried to move, but her body was too weak. Ryan grabbed the lock around her wrists and pulled hard. The metal bent but did not break. The commander roared, "Enough! End him!" Blasters fired. Dust exploded. Ryan rolled across the ground. Grabbing a fallen guard's spear, in one motion, he threw it at the nearest soldier. The spear hit home. The alien fell. Ryan moved like a storm, trained instincts taking over. The crowd screamed, some in anger, some in awe. The girl watched through wide eyes as he fought for her. His movements fast and brutal, but never cruel. He stood before her again, chest heaving. The aliens surrounded him, weapons ready. Ryan looked up at the commander and shouted, "If this is your idea of entertainment, you're worse than the enemies I fought in war," the alien hissed. Ordering his guards to attack, Ryan used every ounce of his strength, knocking two down, punching another into the wall. The girl, despite her weakness, crawled toward him, whispering something in her alien tongue. Her hand touched his arm, and for a brief moment, he felt warmth spreading through his body. A strange glow from her fingers. The energy surged. His wounds began to close slightly. Ryan stared at her in shock. She whispered, "Don't die," before collapsing. The alien saw this and grew furious, calling her a traitor. Ryan lifted her in his arms and glared at the crowd. "You wanted a show," he shouted. "Then watch what humanity really means." He turned toward the side gate and charged forward, smashing through the metal with pure force. The alarms began to scream across the entire complex. The crowd panicked. Lights flickered. Smoke filled the air. Outside, the night sky burned with the glow of alien ships and broken stars. Ryan ran through the corridors carrying the fainted girl, his heartbeat echoing like drums. Behind him, soldiers shouted. Blasters firing. He didn't stop, didn't look back. The alien girl stirred weakly in his arms, whispering, "Why? Why save me?" He answered softly, "Because no one else will." And in that moment, under the red lights of the alien world, the story of one human doing the unthinkable began, not with hate, but with mercy. The alarm screamed across the metal corridors as Ryan carried the weak alien girl in his arms. His boots echoed on the steel floor, each step heavy with determination. The arena behind him erupted in chaos, the crowd shouting, guards chasing, red lights flashing everywhere. Smoke filled the air, and the smell of burning metal grew stronger. He turned a corner and stopped behind a wall. Catching his breath, the girl trembled in his arms. Whispering something in her soft alien voice, Ryan could not understand the words, but he could feel her fear. He whispered back, "It's okay. I'm not going to let them hurt you." She looked up at him, her glowing eyes full of disbelief. No one had ever spoken to her with kindness before. The intercom blared with the commander's voice. "Capture the human alive. The girl must not escape." The sound made Ryan's blood boil. He placed the girl gently on the ground and checked his surroundings. On the wall nearby hung a rack of alien weapons, long metal rods with pulsing blue cores. He grabbed one, testing the weight. It buzzed with strange energy, good enough for a fight. The girl struggled to sit up, her body shaking. "You'll die," she whispered. Her voice breaking, Ryan gave a small smile. "I've heard that before," he said, then turned as footsteps approached. 5 alien guards entered the corridor, their armor glowing under the red lights. Ryan tightened his grip and took a fighting stance. The first one fired, but Ryan ducked and swung his weapon. Hitting the guard's chest, sparks exploded, and the alien fell back screaming. Another came from the side, but Ryan rolled under the blow and countered with a strike to the knee. The creature fell. Ryan kicked him away and turned just in time to block another hit. He moved with military precision, his movements quick and powerful. The aliens didn't expect resistance from a human slave, and within seconds they were on the ground, defeated. Ryan turned to the girl and said, "Can you walk?" She nodded weakly. He helped her stand, supporting her with one arm. They moved through the narrow tunnels, past broken pipes and flickering lights. The arena had turned into a war zone. Alarms and gunfire echoed everywhere. He looked at her and said, "What's your name?" She hesitated before whispering, "Lyra." Her voice was faint. Almost like a song, Ryan nodded. "Lyra, we're getting out of here." For a moment she looked at him like she didn't believe it, as if freedom was just a dream. But his steady voice made her follow. They reached a locked door with alien symbols on it. Ryan tried to open it, but it wouldn't move. Behind them, he could hear guards shouting. He growled in frustration and hit the control panel with the weapon. Sparks flew and the door slid open with a hiss. Beyond it was a massive hangar full of strange ships, lights blinking and engines humming. "We can use one," he said quickly, guiding Lyra inside the moment they entered. Sirens turned blue. The hangar was sealed for lockdown. Ryan cursed under his breath. "They're trying to trap us," he muttered. From above, mechanical drones descended, small, round machines armed with lasers. Ryan pushed Lyra behind a crate and jumped forward, blasting one with the alien weapon. It exploded in a burst of fire, but more came. He ducked, rolled, and swung the weapon like a blade. Smashing one drone into another, metal pieces flew everywhere. His arms burned from exhaustion, but he didn't stop. The drones surrounded him, lasers firing. One beam hit his shoulder, and he fell back with a cry of pain. Lyra gasped, crawling toward him. Her hands glowed again, silver light spreading from her palms as she touched his wound. Ryan's eyes widened as warmth spread through his skin. The pain lessened, and the bleeding stopped. He looked at her in shock. "You healed me," he said. She nodded slowly, weak from the effort. "Only a little," she whispered. "My power is almost gone." He smiled faintly. "Then let's make it count." He stood again, lifting the weapon, and fought through the last few drones until the air went silent. The hangar smelled of smoke and metal. He ran to one of the smaller ships. Pressing random buttons on the control panel, the engines hummed to life. "Get in," he told Lyra as they climbed inside. The speakers boomed again. "Ryan Holt, surrender now, or we will destroy you," the commander's voice thundered. Ryan looked at Lyra, her tired face lit by the glow of the ship's console. "They won't stop," she whispered. He nodded. "Neither will I." The ship shook as heavy doors began closing above them. Ryan pushed the controls, and the ship lifted off just in time, crashing through the half-closed hangar gate. Fire and smoke followed them as they soared into the night sky. Alarms blared behind, alien ships launching in pursuit. Lyra sat beside him, breathing heavily. Her eyes wide as stars appeared outside the window. "You could have killed me like they wanted," she said softly. "Why didn't you?" Ryan looked at her, his expression calm but fierce. "Because I'm human," he replied, "and humans don't hurt the helpless." Lyra blinked, silent, watching as he guided the ship into the dark clouds. For the first time in her life, someone had protected her not for gain, but out of mercy. And as lightning flashed across the alien sky, Lyra began to believe that maybe, just maybe, Humanity was more than what her people had been told. The alien night sky was alive with red flashes and burning trails as Ryan's stolen ship darted between clouds of smoke. The engines screamed, warning lights blinked, and alarms echoed through the cockpit. Ryan's hands moved quickly over unfamiliar controls, trying to keep them from crashing. Behind them, bright lights of alien fighters followed, firing plasma bolts that streaked past the windows. Lyra sat beside him, weak and pale, her breathing shallow. "They're still chasing us," she whispered. Ryan glanced at her and said, "They won't stop until we're dead." "So hold on." The ship trembled as a bolt hit the wing. Sparks filled the cabin. Ryan gritted his teeth and pulled the lever forward, sending the ship diving toward the surface of the planet below. The clouds split apart, revealing endless wastelands of black rock and broken cities. Ruins of ancient towers and crashed ships covered the horizon. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked, her voice shaking. "Somewhere they can't find us," Ryan answered. "We just need cover." He pulled the ship lower, weaving between mountains and wreckage until he saw a deep canyon below. He steered down and landed roughly, the ship skidding across the dirt before stopping near the shadow of a crashed dreadnought. The engines hissed as smoke poured out. Ryan coughed, unbuckling himself. "That was close," he muttered, then turned to check on Lyra. She was trembling but alive. He helped her out of the ship, the air outside heavy with dust and the faint scent of burned metal. The ground glowed faintly, traces of radiation from old wars. "Stay close," Ryan said, scanning the area. He could see broken alien machines, rusted weapons, and long-dead soldiers turned to stone by exposure. Lyra's eyes widened as she stepped carefully over the cracked earth. "This place," she whispered, "it's forbidden." "They say ghosts of the old war live here." Ryan gave a small smile. "Good. Maybe the ghosts will scare them away." She looked at him, confused by his calmness, and followed. They found shelter inside the wreck of an old starship. The walls were cracked but strong enough to hide them. Ryan searched the compartments and found an emergency kit. He opened it, pulling out bandages and strange alien vials. He cleaned a cut on her arm and wrapped it carefully. "You're too kind," she said softly. "You shouldn't waste your strength." Ryan looked at her. "You saved my life back there," he said. "Now it's my turn." Lyra lowered her gaze. Unused to such words, outside thunder rolled, the sky turning darker as lightning danced across the horizon. Ryan sat against the wall, his weapon beside him. Lyra looked at him for a long moment before asking, "Why do humans fight so hard for others?" He chuckled lightly. "Because we know what it feels like to lose everything," he said. His voice carried pain. Lyra tilted her head. "You lost someone," she said quietly. He nodded, staring into the distance. "My team, my family, all gone." For a moment, silence filled the wreck, only the wind howling through the cracks. Suddenly, a faint buzzing sound echoed outside. Ryan tensed. He peeked through a hole in the metal and saw glowing red lights moving through the fog. Drones, at least 6 of them, scanning the wrecks. "They found us," he whispered. He motioned for Lyra to stay quiet. Grabbing his weapon, the drones hovered closer. Their sensors sweeping across the area, Ryan waited until one floated near the doorway, then swung the weapon with full force, smashing it into the ground. Sparks burst. The others immediately turned toward the noise. Firing lasers, Ryan rolled behind cover, shouting, "Stay down!" The fight was fierce. Ryan moved fast, his training guiding every move. He blasted one drone out of the air, ducked another shot, and used the wreck's metal wall to deflect a beam. Lyra crawled behind him, her eyes glowing faintly again. She raised her trembling hand and sent a pulse of silver light toward one of the drones. It froze mid-air, its circuits burning out. Ryan looked back in surprise. "Nice trick," he said. She smiled weakly. Just once more, but her body trembled with exhaustion. When the last drone fell smoking to the ground, Ryan caught his breath and helped Lyra sit. "They'll send more," she said. "They never stop." Ryan nodded. "Then we move before they do." He checked the sky, noticing a faint signal tower blinking in the distance. "That's an old relay station," he said. "Maybe I can send a message." Lyra looked up, confused. "To who?" Ryan's expression hardened. "If any human ships are still out there, they'll hear us." They set out on foot, the wasteland stretching endlessly around them. The ground cracked under their steps, and strange shapes loomed in the distance. Once they passed a field of old battle mechs, their metallic skeletons half buried in sand. Ryan paused and touched one. remembering the human wars long ago. "We used to build these to protect," he murmured. "Now they just rot." Lyra watched him, realizing that beneath his rough exterior was a heart full of loss and purpose. As they approached the relay tower, Ryan noticed movement, shadows sliding between rocks. "We're not alone," he whispered. Suddenly, a net of red light shot from the cliffs. Wrapping around them, alien hunters emerged, armored and snarling. "End of the line." "Human," one hissed. Ryan shoved Lyra behind him, raising his weapon. "Not today," he said. The hunters attacked, and Ryan fought fiercely. His strength was fading, but his spirit burned bright. One hunter lunged, but Lyra screamed and unleashed a blinding silver wave. The light threw the enemy's back, shaking the ground. When it faded, she fell to her knees. Barely conscious, Ryan caught her, holding her close. "Lyra!" he called. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly. "Go," she whispered. "They'll come again." He shook his head. "Not without you." He lifted her in his arms and ran toward the relay tower. Blaster fire echoing behind them. The old structure rose above them like a dark monument of forgotten wars. He reached the door, kicked it open, and disappeared inside, sealing it shut. As the metal door closed, the storm outside grew stronger, lightning flashing across the barren land inside the tower. Ryan placed Lyra down gently and said, "Hold on. This isn't over." Inside the old relay tower, the air was cold and full of dust. Faint lights flickered along the walls, showing signs of ancient technology left to rot. Ryan laid Lyra gently on the floor, her skin pale, her breathing slow. He knelt beside her and whispered, "Stay with me," pressing his hand over her glowing marks. She opened her eyes weakly. "You keep saving me," she said softly. "Why?" Ryan looked at her, his face rough but kind. "Because I couldn't save the last person who trusted me," he answered quietly. She didn't understand the full meaning of his words, but she could feel the pain behind them. He stood and moved toward the console at the center of the room. Layers of dust covered it, but when he brushed it off, faint blue lights flickered alive. "Looks like it still works," he muttered. Tapping at strange symbols, static filled the air, and a broken holographic screen appeared. "This is Relay 729 Human Distress Beacon," he said, hoping someone out there could still hear. For a moment, nothing answered but static. Then a faint human voice crackled through. "This is Outpost Helios. Identify yourself." Ryan's eyes widened. He grabbed the microphone and shouted, "Sergeant Ryan Holt, survivor of the Valon Arena. Requesting extraction, coordinates attached." The voice paused. "Copy that, Sergeant. Stay hidden." "We'll locate you," Ryan exhaled, a rare smile forming. "We're not alone anymore," he whispered. But before he could rest, the sound of explosions echoed outside. The tower shook violently. Ryan looked through a cracked window and saw alien dropships landing in the distance. Soldiers in black armor pouring out. "They found us again," he growled. He turned to Lyra. "We have to move." Now, she tried to stand but stumbled. Ryan caught her. "I can't leave you here," he said. She placed a trembling hand on his cheek, her silver eyes meeting his. "You could run," she whispered. "Save yourself." He shook his head fiercely. "Not without you." His tone left no room for argument. They moved out of the tower, heading toward the canyon beyond the ruins. The wind howled through the cracked landscape, and ash swirled around them like a storm. Behind, the aliens advanced with drones flying overhead. Ryan fired bursts of energy from his stolen weapon. Striking one drone out of the sky, the blast echoed through the wasteland. "Faster!" he urged Lyra, helping her over the rough terrain. The canyon opened before them like a massive scar in the earth, dark and full of fog. "We can hide down there," Ryan said. They slid down the rocky slope, stones falling under their feet as they reached the bottom. The ground trembled again. Ships roared above, shining searchlights across the rocks. Ryan pulled Lyra against the canyon wall, pressing a finger to his lips. They hid beneath an old piece of shipwreckage as soldiers marched past. He could hear their voices, cold, mechanical, and cruel. "Orders are to capture the human alive," one said. "The female is expendable." Ryan's jaw tightened, anger burning inside. When the patrol passed, he whispered, "They see you as nothing, but to me you're everything right now." Lyra looked at him. Surprised by his words, she whispered, "Humans feel so much." Ryan nodded. "That's what makes us strong." They kept moving until they reached an underground cavern lit by glowing crystals. The air was warm and full of strange energy. Lyra touched one of the crystals and gasped. "These are life stones," she said. "They heal." Ryan guided her to sit beside them. The light wrapped around her, and color began to return to her skin. Her wounds closed slightly. Ryan sat across from her, finally taking a moment to rest. "You said you were a healer," he said. "Is that why they kept you locked up?" Lyra nodded. "They wanted me to heal their soldiers. The ones who tortured others, I refused." Ryan clenched his fists. "So they called you broken." She looked at him. "Yes, broken, useless, weak." He leaned closer. "You're none of that," he said firmly. "You're stronger than all of them." Her eyes softened, and for the first time she smiled. "You humans have strange hearts," she whispered. "We call it stubbornness," he said with a small grin. Their quiet moment didn't last. The sound of footsteps echoed deeper in the cave. Ryan grabbed his weapon and stood. Drones flew in, followed by armored hunters. "Move!" he shouted, pulling Lyra behind the crystal wall. Energy blasts lit up the cavern. Ryan fired back, his weapon overheating but still strong. The crystals around them shattered, sending flashes of light across the walls. One blast hit the ground near Lyra, sending her flying. Ryan dove forward and shielded her with his body. Taking the hit himself, pain seared through him and he gasped. Blood staining his armor, Lyra screamed his name. Placing her glowing hands over the wound, the light spread, her voice trembling. "Don't you dare die," she whispered. Ryan smiled faintly. "You sound human when you say that." Her healing light grew brighter, and the alien soldiers hesitated, blinded by it. She poured every bit of her strength into him until the wound began to close. Her light faded, and she collapsed against him. He caught her, whispering, "You're insane." She smiled weakly. "So are you." Together they stood again, facing the last of the hunters. Ryan lifted his weapon and aimed at a crystal above. "Let's make some noise," he said. He fired, shattering it completely. The explosion ripped through the cavern. Collapsing the ceiling, rocks and dust filled the air. The aliens screamed as the cave fell in. Ryan pulled Lyra through a narrow tunnel as everything crashed behind them. They emerged on the other side, covered in dirt and breathing hard. The sun was rising, turning the horizon gold. Lyra leaned against him, barely standing. Ryan looked at her and said softly, "We're almost there." She smiled faintly. "You keep saying that," he nodded. "And one day it'll be true," as they walked toward the distant hills. Ryan saw a faint blue light blinking in the sky, a human signal beacon. Hope burned in his chest. "They're coming," he said quietly. Lyra looked up, her eyes shining. "Then we must keep moving." He nodded, and together they disappeared into the light of dawn, unaware that the alien commander himself had just landed nearby, watching their path through the smoke, whispering, "Let's see how far humanity's mercy can take him." The sun rose over the wasteland like a burning wound in the sky. Painting the horizon with gold and red, Ryan carried Lyra across the cracked ground, her body weak but still breathing. Behind them, trails of smoke followed the ruins they had escaped from. Every step felt heavier, but Ryan refused to stop. He looked up at the distant mountains where the human beacon flickered faintly, a small blue light in a dead world. "Almost there," he whispered. Lyra stirred in his arms, her voice soft. "You keep saying that," she murmured. A faint smile on her face. "Because I mean it," he replied. But peace never lasts long in a galaxy ruled by cruelty. A loud roar shook the air. Shadows appeared in the sky. Alien ships, their engines glowing like fire. "They found us," Ryan muttered, setting Lyra down gently behind a rock. He raised his weapon, checking its charge nearly empty. The ground trembled as the enemy landed, dust and heat blasting through the canyon. From the center of the storm, the alien commander stepped out, his black armor glinting in the sunlight. "Human," he hissed. "You have become quite the problem." Ryan stood firm, his eyes filled with defiance. "You call mercy a problem. I call it strength." The commander laughed coldly. "Strength? You call this weakness strength? You could have lived as a hero in our arenas. But instead you chose to die for a broken thing." He gestured toward Lyra. Lying weakly on the ground, Ryan's voice turned to steel. "She's worth more than your entire empire." The alien smirked and raised his blade. "Then die with her!" The battle began. Blaster fire tore through the air. Ryan dodged behind rocks, firing bursts from his weapon. Hitting two soldiers, he moved fast. Each step fueled by adrenaline and rage, the commander joined the fight, his blade cutting through the dust like lightning. Ryan blocked one strike, but the power behind it sent him tumbling back. He coughed blood, his body aching, but he forced himself to stand again. "You're fighting the wrong species," he said. "Humans don't quit." Lyra struggled to rise. Her hand glowing faintly again, she called out, "Ryan!" He looked back at her, and in that instant, the commander charged. Ryan turned just in time to block the blow. Sparks flew as metal clashed. Ryan twisted and slammed his weapon into the commander's chest. The alien staggered, snarling. "You fight like a beast," Ryan answered. "No. I fight like a man!" The commander lunged again, cutting Ryan's arm, but Ryan countered with a kick. Knocking him down, he looked at Lyra, bleeding but smiling through pain. "It's almost over," he whispered, but the commander wasn't finished. He stood again, pressing a button on his wrist, and the ground split open as drones rose from the earth, surrounding them. "You can't win," he said coldly. "You are one human against an empire." Ryan looked at Lyra and said quietly, "I'm not fighting for an empire." He threw down his weapon and reached for the detonator from the crashed ship's remains on his belt. His eyes burned with determination. "I'm fighting for what's right." He pressed the button, and explosions rippled across the canyon. The drones fell from the sky, fire erupting everywhere. The commander screamed in fury and charged again. Ryan met him head-on, grabbing the alien's arm and forcing the blade aside. The two struggled in the dust, blood and sparks flying. Finally, Ryan twisted the commander's arm and drove the blade into his chest. The alien gasped, eyes wide. "This is impossible," he whispered. Ryan glared at him. "No, this is humanity." He pushed the blade deeper until the commander fell silent. Collapsing to the ground, the battlefield went quiet. Only the sound of fire crackling and wind whistling through broken rocks. Ryan stumbled toward Lyra, his body trembling. He fell to his knees beside her. "It's done," he said softly. "We're safe." Lyra reached for him with a trembling hand, touching his face. Her voice was weak but full of warmth. "You did the unthinkable," she whispered. "You fought not to destroy but to save." He smiled faintly. "Guess that's what makes us human." His vision blurred, pain spreading through his chest. Lyra sat up slowly, her eyes glowing bright silver. "No, not yet," she said, placing her hands on his wounds. The light enveloped him, soft and pure. "You saved me," she whispered. "Now let me save you." Energy flowed between them, her strength fading as his breath steadied. The glow dimmed, and she collapsed into his arms. Ryan held her tightly, whispering, "Stay with me." A voice crackled in his earpiece. "This is Helios Command. We have your signal. Hang on." Extraction inbound. Ryan looked up and saw the sky filled with human ships descending through the clouds, blue lights cutting through the smoke. He smiled weakly, whispering to Lyra, "We made it!" The ground shook as dropships landed nearby, human soldiers rushing out, weapons ready. They stopped when they saw him, a battered man holding an alien girl. Both alive against all odds as medics approached. Lyra's eyes fluttered open one last time. "Ryan," she whispered, "your people." "They're coming." He nodded. "And they'll see you not as a monster, but as a miracle." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe there is hope for us all." Her voice faded as she closed her eyes. Exhausted but at peace, Ryan looked at the horizon where the sun was rising over the battlefield. "It's light, warm, and golden. You see that?" he whispered. "That's what we fight for." The medics lifted them onto the rescue ship. The engines roared, carrying them away from the broken world. As the ship ascended, Ryan looked out the window, watching the ruins fade beneath him, the war, the arena, the cruelty, all of it left behind in his arms. The alien girl, who was once meant to be his victim, now slept peacefully. Humanity had done the unthinkable, not through power or conquest, but through compassion. And somewhere deep in the stars, the universe itself would remember that one human, faced with hatred and cruelty, chose mercy instead.